start out, you know?
You think it's like a human tendency to want to leave a place that you've been at for way too long? I've heard similar stuff like you just said, I'm her if I don't leave, or like my friends in mass would be like, oh, I don't want to be this person if I don't leave. And there's just like this thing where you got to get out of the place that you've been at for way too long. Even if you're, I'm not saying you were doing fine in New York. You said you were working like 7 jobs, something crazy like that. But even if some of these people are doing fine, they'll think that, and sometimes I'll find myself thinking the same thing. So you think it's just like a humans just do that out of reaction of needing change or progression, or
I think so. I think that like I know that in my own life, the times that I felt the most happy are when when I had the least assurances. You know, like when I was on my own and I was not looking, I didn't have very much with me, and I was just like, shit, I got to figure this out. You know, um, part of for me, a lot of my time in New York was living very much on the edge and not having a lot of assurance, and I loved it. You know, but towards the end, I was like in my apartment filled with like 10 years of my shit, and I'm being like, oh, like this is dragging me down. And yeah, I think there's a human desire for a clean break because I think that no matter all the shit that we start to own, like fucking cell phones and clothes and shoes and whatever, like we don't. It's all garbage. We don't want it. Like we feel better without it, you know. And moving is a way to fucking enact that feeling of freedom, of being unencumbered by our attachment to the material world. And that's, I'm not like a spiritual person, but I know I've in my research it sort of seems like a lot of spiritual traditions are rooted in that, like renegotiating your relationship to the material world, you know? Like one of my favorite, I think my favorite painting in the world, y'all should see it before it closes down again, is at the Frick collection. It's Saint Francis in the Desert by Giovanni Bellini. And it's like from the late 15th century. And it's a painting of poverty. It's a painting of this like ascetic, uh, like mendicant Saint Francis who like started an order of monks who begged for charity, and he goes out in the wilderness. He'd been a rich man. He goes off in the wilderness. He miraculously receives the stigmata. It's painted so beautifully by this like Italian painter who's like one of the first painters to like use oil paint in Italy, Venetian painter. It's this landscape. It's like you see like 112 different species of plants, all these animals tucked away, beautiful golden light, and it's painted by the most meticulous, like money grubbing, materialistic, like Venice. Venice is Manhattan. They don't have any fucking farmland. They don't have any like land. It's canals and beautiful palaces rising out of the water. Like, and it's all built on trade and commerce and warfare. And they paint these like beautiful paintings of poverty because that's what we desire. We want to live off the land. That's our human nature, is to forage and to explore. You know what I mean? And so like I think like that's a thing, that's skateboarding, right? It's exploration for me. First you learn the language, then you learn to move, and then you go places. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. No, that talk about not having assurance is actually really interesting because living in the city, having a job, especially a 9 to 5, it becomes very routine. It becomes something that you can predict. Like if you were to ask me where I'm going to be in 20 years on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, I can tell you exactly in theory. If everything goes right, I don't, die or whatever. Like I
Right.
know where I'm going to be. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing and what job I'm going to have. And I don't know that having no assurance. For example, when we go on road trips, like for example, we drove to Florida in a car and we had no plan. We would just like sleep in the car, like eat in random places. Or like when we went to Puerto Rico, we didn't even get an Airbnb or a hotel. We literally slept on the streets of Puerto Rico with no assurances at all. We didn't know if we were going to make it through the night. But in those chaotic moments, that's when I felt the most alive, the most happy, the most content with my life. It's crazy. People think, oh, comfort, routine. After a while, it becomes you kind of get numb to it. I
Yeah,
feel like those wild freestyling moments of not knowing what you're gonna eat or where you're gonna shit or where you're gonna sleep or whatever. I think those are in our nature more interesting. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I mean it's human nature to find order in chaos, you know? And the best part of life for me, this fuels my interest in art and this like fuels my desire to skate, is those moments where you have to actually invent those things, make up those stories, find your way creatively, like see those things. And yeah, I mean, and totally, like I had a 9 to 5. I had a very kind of like regular, time consuming job at a museum in Yonkers, like for 2 years before last fall. And it was like every on paper, it was great. I was like, this is a career. In 20 years, I can see where I'm going with this. This is why I studied art history. This is where my PhD is going. Here's this whole possibility. And I was fucking miserable. I loved telling people about my job and hated describing what I did, and hated thinking about what I did, and hated doing what I did. And the moment I lost that job, I remember I was like, I just bought a bike too. So I just fucking spent like, $500 on a used bike off of Craigslist, something I could have afforded with a full-time job. I'm like giving $500 cash that I'm supposed to be eating off of for the next month to this dude on a bike for a bike. And I'm riding up the West Side Highway bike path, like back towards my place. And I'm just like so thrilled. Like, holy shit, I get to adventure again. I get to like, this is exploration. This is like me. This is what I missed. This is, and yeah, I mean, granted, I speak from a position of like, I made it out of that. I didn't end up homeless. I didn't starve to death. There were people, I had work lined up and shit happens. Like those moments of freedom, of creativity, of trying to like adapt and like improvise, those are only appreciated when the end result, you don't end up dead. you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that I was thinking the exact same thing this whole time, pretty much, that it's one thing to have lack of routine when it's going your way.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
another when you're stranded in the woods and it's not going your way. So it's not necessarily the lack of routine. It might just be, you know what I mean? Like, and it's also like, let's just say our trip to Florida, sleeping in the car. Yeah, that's cool for 4 days. Let's do it for 4 years.
Yeah.
We'll hate it. You know what I mean? We'll be like, we want structure. We want some sort of thing. I'm tired of this dude. I'm tired of that dude. And I hate not knowing what parking lot I'm going to sleep in. And if a Floridian Shermhead's going to come out of the cut and kill me or something, like it's,
Yeah.
it's just like, but one thing I do think is that humans are not meant to do, even if you love what you're doing, you're not meant to do that thing like 24/7 at this set time and date forever. We're fluid people. We're fluid, like creation. We're
Yeah.
fluid beings. We're not supposed to be stuck on one thing forever. I could imagine if I was a pro skater, I'd be so over it if someone called me and it's like, yo, 9 a.m. we have to get this. And it's been 5 years of this already. I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
bro, like I did not start skating for this.